Coach reports Daniel Cormier wasn't physically at his best for Stipe Miocic rematch. Daniel Cormier has only been defeated by Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic during his storied MMA career. But according to his longtime coach, Javier Mendez, DC wasn't 100% for his rematch with Miocic last August. Cormier quickly and violently ended Miocic's first reign as heavyweight champ at UFC 239 in July 2019 by knocking him out in the first round. That November, Cormier opted to fight Derek Lewis at UFC 230 and won the fight via submission. Miocic, meanwhile, waited out for a rematch and he got his wish at UFC 241 last August. Early on, it looked like Cormier was going to defeat Miocic for a second time, but the athletic fighter came roaring back in round 4 and reclaimed the heavyweight crown by putting away Cormier with strikes. Well, recently, Mendez spoke with MMA Junkie and the topic of Cormier fighting Miocic again came up. While discussing their rematch, however, Mendez relayed that DC wasn't at his physical best heading into UFC 241. Well, you know, we all make excuses. We all say this and that. And I'm good at making excuses too, you know, because I've done it, Mendez said. But the bottom line is, I like to tell the truth. It does come out as an excuse, but Daniel just did have surgery not too long after that fight. He was not 100% going in. He was good. He was ready for the title bout, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't the same as he was the first fight straight up. And I know it doesn't sound too good to say that, but I'll take the heat. It's fine. Blast away. I'm fine with that. It's the truth though. Now, it should be noted here that after Cormier defeated Lewis in 2018, he underwent back surgery. So it's certainly possible that the decorated wrestler wasn't 100% for UFC 241. That said, Miocic injured his eye during his rematch with Cormier and has been sidelined since. So Miocic and his camp would likely point that out if asked to weigh in on Mendez's comments. It should also be stated that Mendez did praise Miocic for his performance at UFC 241 and for his comeback win. Well, since Cormier and Miocic hold a win over each other, there's been no shortage of talk about a rubber match. Dana White has said that's the plan, and Cormier has even said it's the only fight that will get him back in the octagon. DC has also said he plans to hang up the gloves after facing Miocic for a third time. Case in point, while talking about a rubber match and Cormier's fighting future, Mendez said this. He said on Stipe, Mendez said, and if he doesn't get Stipe, then that will probably be it. So that would be in the best interest of the UFC if they want to save one marquee fight, which is a great trilogy, one of the best trilogies they've had. So they're both 1-1, so it's a great trilogy fight in the heavyweight division. I think the UFC is very smart, and I would believe, and I'm 100% thinking, they're going to say that's the fight to make. Does anyone disagree with that?
Lock hands! Oh, better! Yes, better! Come back!
It's the wall you're getting.
Come on, Chase!
Don't stop.
Keep on, Chase, keep on! Get up, Chase, get up!
Fight the hands, attack the hands. You gotta attack the hands.
You gotta fight his hands, Chase. Fight his hands. Chase! Wrestle Chase Gaethje! Next group.
Chase, you don't want to be on the mat.
Eddie Bravo believes Tony Ferguson has more weapons than anyone in UFC history and will severely test Khabib Nurmagomedov. Although Khabib Nurmagomedov is set to fight Tony Ferguson on April 18th, a man who has won 12 straight fights, talk about the champion rematching Conor McGregor later this year continues to make the rounds. But according to Ferguson's jiu-jitsu coach Eddie Bravo, El Cucuy and his wide array of weapons are going to present Khabib a massive test at UFC 249. Hardcore fans and MMA observers understand that Ferguson is one of the greatest lightweights on the planet and that he could be Khabib's toughest test to date. But despite all that, Nurmagomedov is a sizable favorite on the betting lines to defend the 155 title at UFC 249. Further, and as I alluded to earlier, it seems like Dana White can't do an interview these days without someone asking him about the possibility of Khabib McGregor 2. But while appearing on Joe Rogan's podcast recently, Bravo reminded folks of why Ferguson is going to be a serious test for Nurmagomedov, despite the fact that the latter has never lost and despite the fact he's arguably the greatest wrestler the game has ever seen. Here's some of what Bravo had to say.
The thing with Khabib is undefeated, no doubt, one of the best fighters probably of all time.
Never lost a round.
Yeah.
One.
Like, against
Conor. round 3.
But you got to remember this too.
Quinta maybe.
There are a couple Khabib fights. We watch all the Khabib fights where you do see where you don't see the classic Khabib. Like with Gleason to Bout, that didn't go down you also look at the Dos Anjos fight. He clearly won that, but there was things that he couldn't do that he could do with other people. Because Dos Anjos, he couldn't get past Dos Anjos' guard. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. If you're looking to draw from bouts where Khabib wasn't so dominant, the examples Bravo cited are good ones. That said, his bout with Tibau took place in 2012, and his win over Rafael Dos Anjos was back in 2014. Khabib supporters would likely argue that the Eagle has improved his game since then. But while talking about Ferguson specifically and what he'll bring to his war with Khabib, Bravo said this.
Tony wrestled his whole goddamn life.
Wow, Tony's phenomenal wrestler.
There's a light year difference between Conor's wrestling and Tony's wrestling, right? So you got that. Tony will throw Darce's standing and from all different angles while you're trying to take him down. So Khabib's got to worry about that. But I will promise you this, is we got all sorts of landmines waiting for him and traps. We know where he wants to take the fight, and there's going to be some traps there. All sorts of them. And no one knows about them. We're not talking about them, but we've been working on this for a while. Tony has so many goddamn weapons. So many. He might have more weapons. He might have more weapons than anybody in the history of the UFC.
Yep, there's a reason El Cucuy has won 12 straight fights. But what do you guys think? Is Ferguson the toughest test Nurmagomedov has had to face to date? Can he hand Khabib his first defeat? Conor McGregor versus Justin Gaethje could reportedly happen after all. Justin Gaethje and many others have accused Conor McGregor of ducking the lightweight contender in recent months. But according to a new report, Gaethje is currently the frontrunner to be McGregor's next opponent. For the better part of 2019, Gaethje was driving for a fight with McGregor, especially after he took out Donald Cerrone in September. Then, after it was confirmed that McGregor was going to face Cerrone at UFC 246 last month and not Gaethje, claims that the star was avoiding the former World Series of Fighting champ spiked. After all, Gaethje had already defeated Cerrone, he's recorded 3 straight knockouts, and he's ranked ahead of Cowboy. Further, while Cerrone is one of the toughest and most experienced fighters on the UFC roster, he's now 36. In addition, not only does Gaethje hit like a truck, he has nasty leg kicks and an NCAA Division I wrestling pedigree. Well, since McGregor ran through Cerrone at UFC 246, talk about a showdown between the Notorious One and Gaethje hasn't been widespread. A big reason being that Dana White has said the plans to have McGregor wait to face the winner of the April 18th bout between champion Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson. But according to a recent tweet from Jedi Goodman, Ariel Helwani recently relayed this news on his show. Ariel Helwani says a summer fight between McGregor versus Gaethje is the current frontrunner.
But I would say as of right this moment, a summertime fight between Gaethje and Conor is the current frontrunner. Things can change, talks very preliminary at this point, but that's the fight that Gaethje obviously wants, and I think for everyone involved on Conor's side, they recognize that this is the fight that makes the most amount of sense next.
So while it remains to be seen if McGregor-Gaethje gets signed, this is really interesting news. Could it be that McGregor's tired of all the talk that he's avoiding Gaethje? It could be. After all, before UFC 246 took place, McGregor told the Mac Life he was keenly aware of the things Gaethje had been saying about him.
I know you don't want to talk about opponents and names so much, but I will say one last one is Justin Gaethje. Recently you even tweeted Lola Gaethje. He's been very vocal about how this idea of
he's on the list.
Yeah.
He is on the list. Maybe I will face him next. Maybe I'll face him next, you know. He has it coming to him. I mean, I laugh at El Justin. He's bleeding. He's a funny guy. He's been taking it very to heart, you know, and I know the feeling when you do that. So maybe Justin will be, maybe I'll go through Donald and I'll have a quick turnaround against Justin. So maybe that's what happened, but Justin is on the list, no doubt.
Then it's also important to remember that Conor has repeatedly talked about staying busy in 2020. In fact, after his big win at UFC 246, he outright said he doesn't want to wait on the sidelines until late summer or early fall for his next bout, even if that fight's a title fight. So what do you guys think? Could we see McGregor throwing hands with Gaethje next, after all?